Hello and welcome everybody. Today's December 10th, 2020. And I'm
Woo-hoo!
Aley. This is Keith from Heart and
This is
Soul
Keith.
Connected. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
and that's Zoe.
that's our Zoe. So we attempted to go live and do a live stream, and my audio wouldn't work. I tried everything. And we decided that it's possible that we don't have enough bandwidth to do that on two StreamYards in one
We have
house.
both of us going.
So we just decided we'd do it here, but we really would like the interaction. So we're going to try to figure out what we need to do. But today we were ready to go, and the best laid plans of mice and men. So we were about 4 days out of the eclipse, and we've been watching some videos this morning from Denise Siegel on her channel for astrology. And we've looked at some of the tarot readers and some of the channeling and stuff. And I just decided that I needed to figure something out here, that we needed to talk as well today. So immediately pulled up, I always try by starting with a card, and this one is Stepping into Power. And it says on it, you are strong beyond measure. And as you can see, it's a beautiful card. It's a Denise Lynn Sacred Traveler card. And the lantern always shows the way. So we're lucky here because on Lilac Lantern, our friend Andrea brought us to this community that we just started less than a month ago. So welcome to everybody. Namaste.
Welcome.
So I want to put a little bit of background into this because the other night, Tuesday night, Keith and Andrea discussed intuition, finding intuition. And while they were having their discussion, I was thinking about other things that could be brought up, because there's no way you can teach intuition per se, but there are things that you can do to become more aware. And I know they shared some of those things with you. Some of them are a good feeling. Keith said he just knew something was right, or he felt it in the gut. And Andrea even had more reason to know her intuition, because she had a lot of psychic ability as well, even as a child. But there are ways that you can recognize things that happen to you and promote more awareness and intuition in order for you to become more and more intuitive. So I hearkened back to a course that I took at a Young Center in Houston a number of years ago. The gentleman was talking about the idea of pattern recognition. And a lot of it had to do with psychology and so on. But this is just, it isn't just spiritual things that we can recognize patterns by, but we can also recognize situations we get ourselves in and how we bring ourselves to that situation, which would also include patterns of thinking. And I know that Keith and Andrea are probably going to be talking about law of attraction later on, so I don't want to step on those toes. But I do want to say that there are a number of ways in relationships, in business, in situations that you find yourself in, that you can look at and read the patterns. Some of those are even, some patterns or symbols come up for us. And I don't know about you, but many times when I've been thinking about something, I'll hear a song on the radio that either reminds me more of what I've been thinking about, or the pattern that happens when I do that. So how can pattern recognition help and bring you into your intuition in order to make the changes needed for your life, and so you don't fall into those traps again, and also to develop your more intuitive sense by recognizing things that, while they may not be necessarily spiritual, they are messages that are being sent to you, but you're not You're just not seeing those messages.
Not open to it.
Correct. So I've got some explanations of a couple of ideas that I would like to pass along that he mentioned in there. Pattern recognition can be seen in how people react to different things, what triggers their anger. You know, there's lots and lots of psychological things. But I'm going to talk more about relationships and situational behaviors. And I'm going to have Keith also talk about some of the patterns that we have seen and on the news from the administration and from the last 4 years that have been right there in everybody's face and were not recognizable. So I'll get to that. But is there anything you wanted to say in the meantime, Keith, before we get to that?
Nope.
No? Okay.
Nope. Go ahead.
Alrighty. So one of the things that the man discussed and I thought was an excellent observation was he was talking about waiting in line at a restaurant. Now, we're not talking COVID, so just, you know,
Pre-COVID.
This is pre-COVID. But he said, let's say, for instance, that you want to go out to lunch with your friends and or your business partners or people from work, and you decide, you know, where you're going to go, and you pick a place to go and you go there. And you get there and the line is really long and you have to wait a really long time in order to get waited on. And you know, you got 5 or 6 people waiting and you're looking and the waiter, no one's recognizing you. There's no one there taking names. You feel like, you know, I need to tell somebody we're here or whatever. But nobody's paying any attention. Finally, one of the people there has waited long enough and they either yell back, is somebody there, or can somebody seat us, or can we get some menus or something? And so in that case, you know, there's the first pattern being recognized, but maybe you're not put aside by that just yet. So then they get you to your table. You know, they say, oh, I'm sorry, I, you know, explain profusely why they were late. They get you to your table and then they give the menus out and they leave and they go out back, or they go wait on somebody else, and 15, 20 minutes go by. And they haven't come back to take your order yet. So then they come back and, you know, can we please get somebody to take our order? And so then, you know, can we get a drink? And then the drinks are flubbed up, and then you order something to eat and none of the food comes out right. And, you know, everything continuously goes on and on and on. And it's just a really, really bad experience. If you had looked at it right from the get-go, what the pattern was, and maybe it was just a day pattern. Maybe it was that day's pattern. So I'm not saying, you know, you have to throw away your favorite restaurant, but maybe that pattern should have been recognized at the very beginning. We didn't get anybody interested in putting us at a table. And then when we did get a table, we were sort of thrown menus and then ignored. I would have, at that point, at least, I would have left before. Keith can tell you, I don't wait at restaurants, but I'll attest to that. But a lot of people will give it a second shot and say, I'll wait a little bit longer. But if by the time that you are at that table and they're not coming around, they're not going to come around. You're going to have to keep bugging them over and over again. So, you know, I guess that would be an easier pattern to recognize for us than, say, what kind of pattern we might have in a relationship with somebody or subsequent relationships with someone. Because they say that there's a lot of people that choose the same type of partner because in the very beginning, they see their partner in a different light, or they see the potential partner in a different light, or they find something very cute about that, or they find something that's not very irritating about it, and it will change, and so on and so forth. And the older we get, or the more relationships we have, we know that that's not going to change. And this is in particular when choosing people, let's say, that have, I want to say addiction problems, but it isn't even that. It's, you know, problems with coming face to face or having a conversation or having a meaningful argument, because arguments can be meaningful and helpful. So, you know, if you can recognize that pretty quickly in a relationship, and you can, you know, just like you can, I guess, if you had a new cat or a new dog, and our dog chewed on everything. Our dog Sable, not the little one you saw. She chewed on everything, everything. And then she chewed a hole in the wall. We should have figured that was coming because she was chewing everything. And we were in bed and, you know, she decided to go to town on it. So yes, you can recognize employees, you can recognize bosses, you can recognize people that you do business with, and know whether or not they'll call you back, whether or not they're true to their word, whether or if they're just gaslighting you and telling you a lie, and they'll never intended to call you back or whatever. And it isn't because necessarily they were malicious or mean. There are some people that are, but it's just their pattern. And unless you can handle that pattern, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to ever get out of that pattern. You're going to end up going back to that pattern again and again, and you're going to be frustrated, and you're going to be knocking your head up against the wall.
Let me interject.
Yep.
So when you walk, or when anybody, when we walk into a business, I don't care what it is. Mm-hmm. It can be a restaurant, it can be a health clinic, a retail store, anything you can imagine. You can tell generally within the first 5 to 10 seconds what you're going to get.
What the energy is.
Establishment.
Yeah.
And when you were talking about this, the not getting served in a restaurant, remember in a town, don't mention the town, don't mention the restaurant.
I won't. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
When I called the waiter.
Yeah.
We tried 3 times.
Yes.
And we got exactly the same response.
The person did not listen.
All 3 times.
Right.
And we won't go back. The service was poor. The food was mediocre. It was just a bad experience all the way around.
Right. And absolutely.
You don't want that. But you can tell the energy. Everybody on the planet, what do we want? Number one, what do we want? We want our humanity to be recognized.
Correct.
All you have to do is smile.
Yeah, I'll be right with you.
Hello. Welcome. Right. We're glad you're here.
Right.
You know, and recognize one human being to another human being. That's not asking for much.
Not really. No.
It shouldn't be anyway.
Or this, in this particular case, we pointed out something 3 times, and so the person did not choose to listen at all to us, and because it was very clear, it wasn't in a message that was puzzling in any way. But the same thing could be said, couldn't it, about the energy of place or the energy of the people at the place? Yes. I remember with another person.
That's what I was referring to.
Right. I remember walking into a restaurant in Florida with another person, but and there was a man he was stirring spaghetti sauce. I could see him. He was cooking behind the counter, stirring spaghetti sauce, and he had a cigar in his mouth, and there was a huge ash at the very end of the cigar, and he's stirring the pot, you know. And I looked at my friend, and my friend looked at me, and we said, "Let's go." You know, I didn't want ash in my spaghetti sauce. So, but you know, a lot of this comes with that's intuition. I mean, isn't how you can recognize something or you can feel something? We all have that, I think. We know when we're comfortable. We know when we're not comfortable. Yes?
Yes. Yeah. Some of it is intuition, and some of it is like what you're talking about, what you're wanting to
the patterns.
Discuss.
Correct.
Pattern recognition.
Right.
And that's what it needs to jump out as.
That's right. Um, and these don't necessarily have to be spiritual patterns, but at the same time, you can build up the muscle of the pattern recognition, and then you can utilize that in the intuition, and then make changes from there, utilizing the information that you got. So there's a lot that you can gather from, and you can make changes from there. You can not, for instance, you can refuse to go to that restaurant again if if it was that bad of an experience or whatever, or you can choose to speak up and say something about it, or maybe give them a second chance. And you and I have done that. We have given a place actually
tried
three
times.
chances.
Yeah.
We gave them three.
Yeah.
It was a pizza place. And we said, we're going to try it once. No, it's okay, because it doesn't matter. You know how many pizza places there are? But it was a pizza place, and we tried their pizza 3 times. And every time there was a problem. They either made it wrong, they didn't put it in, they didn't give us our drinks, they didn't, So, and the other was a different situation. So it isn't necessarily that they use that word Karen now, where old people make, complain about stuff that other people are dealing with. We're not trying to be Karen and Kyle here, or Zoe. But you do recognize that this isn't going to work. So why do you want to waste your time doing it over and over again? It just isn't going to work. And not everybody's going to like everybody anyway. So there's part of that in there, don't you think? I mean, we just don't have that affinity toward everyone at times, just have on a different vibrational journey, I guess. One of the things that, Einstein said was that, if we don't learn from history, we're doomed to a repeat. Maybe he didn't say that, but if we keep doing the same things over and over, that's a form of insanity, I think it is. And so, you have to really sit down and you have to think about what it is that's being said and being felt and being done, and why you're brought back to that again. Because you're not comfortable with it. Do you think it could be, or, what do you think about it? It could be a fear, and you're bringing that fear back. And so you're getting that same situation. I'm not 100% sure on that. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, you made the comment earlier, had something, you were talking about relationships, and this crossed my brain. And some of the people that we habitually choose over and over and over,
Mm-hmm.
it has to do with our emotional needs.
Huh?
Or emotional
Makes sense.
shortcomings, emotional issues
Mm-hmm.
that we need or should be dealing with.
Right. So there's a lot of psychology behind this, but you and I aren't holding that. We don't have that shingle, but that doesn't mean we can't talk about, what we think about that. Yeah.
Well, it's part of the pattern recognition that we're
Right.
talking about here.
Yeah, it is.
If someone has a relationship and the relationship turns south, they end that relationship, and then one of the people or both people go out and forge new relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be damned if they're not the exact same issues.
It's something that hasn't been resolved yet. There's some resolution.
It's either an issue that hasn't been resolved, fears, anxieties,
Mm-hmm.
frustration, whatever. It's an emotional something that needs to be dealt with.
Along with that, I want to bring this in because it makes perfect sense. We're having a Socratic dialogue here back and forth, which is, I'm in my heaven. But it also reminds me of the fourth turning, because that's pattern recognition.
Yes. Yes.
And you talked about that, with Andrea. One of the first things you talked about was the fourth turning, and how different patterns come up, and how we're in this way of living, and this, that kind of thing. And it's all, so in other words, microcosm, macrocosm as well. Yes?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. And you wanted me to talk about the last 4
The
years.
orange man.
So I have a question. I have a question. What was the first thing that came to your mind that told you this was a wingnut?
Well, I don't know why I watched very, very infrequently, but once in a while watched The Apprentice when it was regular people, I guess, like in 2002. And you could tell he was a wannabe TV hound. He just wanted the recognition. And he was very narcissistic. You could tell he was a narcissist. He had a very big ego. But I did not believe he would ever be taken seriously. And I remember a friend from New Zealand telling me he was going to run for president. And I said, oh, come on. And that's what everybody said that was, I guess, on more of the left side of the fence, perhaps. They would just, this would never happen and that sort of thing. But the way he came down those stairs, everything was a big fanfare. And from there, is that what you're meaning?
Yeah, it was all made for TV.
Yes, it
So
still is.
if you remember when he ran and then he won, I gave him the benefit of the doubt.
Yes, you were a lot nicer than I was.
I neither condemned nor supported.
Right.
Neither one. I went,
You
okay,
gave
let's
him a
wait.
chance. You were giving him a
But
chance.
I gave him the chance. But what, to me, the first thing was the inauguration.
Right.
And he screamed to the rafters that he had the biggest audience in history.
Right.
And it wasn't. And you knew. I mean, well, I knew.
Yeah.
It's like, this guy is on drugs.
Yeah.
And it just got worse from there.
Well, and it's interesting that Jerry Kushner was known to say that controversy creates chaos. And that is what the entire 4 years has been, both controversy and chaos. But that's what keeps the base going, as well as the repetition over and over again. It's like if you say it enough, then it must be true. And it's frightening to me. It's very cult-like behavior, although a cult is not necessarily always a bad thing, because a cult simply means people that live in the same culture that believe in the same thing. But yet we all look at it as a very negative, and it ends up more than not being negative because of the way that it's handled. So at the beginning, so as it went on, I would not be happy with different things that were happening, but it wasn't really until 2019 in the summertime that I got really, really tired of it. And I realized that there was always drama. Drama.
It's been that
And
way the whole time.
it has. And there are some people that thrive on drama and always will. And they don't feel like they're alive unless they have it. And he's one of them. But so are a lot of people who believe in him and cannot see the other side. I don't know. We all are wondering why, and we turn on the news every night and someone will say, you won't believe what happened, and why do you think that happened? And we've been asking ourselves that for 24 plus months at least, maybe more. Why is this happening?
So I have a topic of discussion.
Okay.
I read to me, very interesting article years ago. And it had to do with running or managing a company, either a business or a corporation or
Yeah.
a service group, whatever, doesn't matter.
Hmm.
You can look at any organization, any business, any entity, and you can tell almost instantaneously the base fear of the person or group that runs that whatever it is.
You can. You're right.
Now, you and I have, we have banked all over the United States. We
Mhm.
have several bank accounts all over the country. And we have one banking institution now, today, that we absolutely despise.
Hmm.
Why? You know who I'm talking about?
I
The
think
one
so.
we don't
Yes.
like.
Yes. We can't get online, right?
And why
Yeah.
can't we get online?
They changed. If you don't log in every 6 months or something, you can't. Yeah. Something like that. Yeah.
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 So what is the base fear?
Ah. Yep. Way
They're
too worried
afraid they're
about.
going to lose something. Somebody's
Right.
going to come and steal something.
Right. Right.
And yet we have Wells Fargo, which is over almost 2/3 of the United States, I think, all over
Mhm.
the entire
Yeah.
country.
I've been with them for
I have
25
no
years.
problem with them,
Yeah.
none
Yeah.
whatsoever.
Yeah.
And some of the other bigger ones as well.
Hmm.
Um, they don't have that base
Right.
fear.
Right.
So now take this further. Look at the pattern. What is the base fear of the current administration?
Oh, they say it's socialism, but I don't believe it. It's the eradication
I'm
of the
not
Trump
looking
bill.
at don't look at what their rhetoric
Saying,
is.
okay.
Look at their actions. Look at what they're trying to do. They're closing off the borders.
Hmm.
They're shutting things down.
Yeah.
What else are they doing? What else? Come on, help me.
Disenfranchising voters.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Staying with someone who quite that people can, many people agree, including high intelligence people, um, supporting a person who lost by saying they won, even though high intelligence people have said to the contrary. Um, not, oh, I think the biggest one is not caring about
People.
people. Yeah, people, humanity. Yeah. I feel like, oh, you're sick. Oh, well, it's no worse than
Oh
the flu.
well.
Oh, well, you need money. You can't eat. What's wrong with you? You should have your money. You should have food. What's
Mm-hmm.
wrong? Why can't you make food? I think Ivanka said, um, uh, don't worry about not having a job. You can always reinvent yourself and go into a different field. This is in the
So
middle of a pandemic.
let's list some of our base fears.
Mm-hmm. Hours
Fear,
or,
just in general.
oh, okay.
Fear of what?
Fear of loss, um, loss of money, loss of job, loss of,
Power.
pardon?
Fear of losing power.
Fear of losing power, even our own power. Fear of humiliation,
Shame.
shame,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Fear
So
of not succeeding.
what is Donald Trump's base fear?
They don't, um, they don't want people who are smarter than them to run things. I don't know.
Well, it's a discussion. There is no right or wrong.
I know there isn't, but I'm feeling like, they don't believe in science, a lot of them. There are probably some people that do. There's a lot of people that have told me the reason they voted for him, but this was a year ago when they first voted for him, was their 401ks were fabulous and they were making lots of money. So loss of money, loss of ego, loss of
Influence.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And, if anybody's watching this, I doubt there will be that voted for him and loves him and, doesn't understand this is a spiritual channel. I'm sure we could look at other people in society that have led, had administrations or led the country or led their governments or led their corporations. And we could even pick on those types of patterns that are done from those people. Look at the Enron people back in Houston.
Yes.
They fabricated all of their profits and things like that. They weren't really making anything. They were just inflating things. Look at
Yep.
Bernie Madoff,
It was all a facade.
Yeah. So, it isn't just people that are disgruntled with the current administration, but I think the hardest part is you don't even realize that you're being sucked into the drama. Even if you don't believe in what's being done, your energy is being sucked in. And, this can happen in
And
relationships as
sucked
well.
from you.
Yes, like vampires.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sabotage.
But if you don't see the pattern, and then of course we got this pandemic on top of it, and it's just, did you know that the pandemic is just for Democrat thing?
It's a hoax. Shh.
And yet people are losing. It's terrifying and it's frightening that people don't still believe it even when they have it. And a nurse came on and said, want to say goodbye to your family because, why? I don't have COVID. There is no COVID. And it's happening over and over and over. Just like, why is a mask a problem? I still don't know. Only because their cherished leader doesn't believe in it. And if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for them, I guess. So what is the pattern? The pattern is gaslight, lie, fraud. Remember when he was impeached and he came and they said, and he was acquitted, I guess, from the Senate because he's still impeached. What, you can't not be impeached. But he said, I don't go away. He's telling us exactly what he's doing. And he does this, he flags it. There are flags that we can see if we are aware of.
His niece Mary said that he does not joke.
No, he doesn't
kid.
No, he doesn't. And yet he has said several times, oh, I was, I was just having fun. No, he isn't like that. He doesn't have that in him.
So let's flip this.
Okay.
Let's look at Joe Biden.
Well, okay.
Harris.
There are a lot of people.
What is their base fear? Can you, or
what is it they fear?
A discernible base fear?
It's funny because there are two fears. There's a fear on the left, extreme left, and there's a fear on the right. The one on the extreme left is he won't get anything done. He's not aggressive enough. He'll just be, and right now we don't need that because we need to get things sort of settled out. So the left does, they may have voted for him or not, or didn't vote, but they don't care for him. Not that he's not a nice man or whatever, but they don't want him to be the leader. There are some. On the right, he's too politically correct, maybe. Trump says whatever he thinks, and that's what they want. But they want it in what they think, or it becomes what they think. Yeah, it's very interesting.
To me, there, I cannot see. It doesn't jump out and bite me that there is a base fear that has to be dealt with. With the current administration, it's just total fear. I mean, in your face.
Well,
afraid of loss, of stealing, of somebody taking something from them.
But look at the Republicans in the Senate and in the Congress. They have a fear, and their fear is they will lose faith. They will be humiliated.
Which is power.
They will, right? Their power. They'll be emasculated.
Yes.
Even the women feel that because there are a lot of women.
But
There's
but
maybe,
I'm here to tell you the energy that supported that type of thinking and that type of behavior and
Mhm.
that type of how to conduct yourself, that energy is not there. So that is why you look at them and it appears they're just flailing about like a fish that's been thrown out of water and it's just flip flop, flip flop, flip flop. That's what they're doing
yeah.
because there's no energy to support what they're trying
Well,
to
you'll
accomplish.
notice that
It's
they
gone.
always,
Not there
they
anymore.
run, and they run from questions that people want to ask them. They don't let,
Well,
they
they have no
don't,
answers.
no, they,
There's
well,
no
yeah,
answer.
because, yeah, yeah, because of fear.
How can you justify trying to overturn an election when the most number of people ever in this country voted? And to say that there's a conspiracy that would require thousands of participants
Right.
is just absurd. It's
Well,
absolutely ludicrous.
why, and why don't they understand that during that this was a plan from the beginning to obfuscate to the base by saying this is going to happen, 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 and then when it happens,
And look what happened. Oh my God.
yeah, I told you it would happen.
Yep.
See, yeah,
Yep.
and it doesn't even make allowances for the fact that he said, don't vote by mail, don't vote in the mail, don't vote, don't send it, bring in your ballots, don't vote in the mail. So the Republican Party people did not. They came out in droves and they voted in the polling places. It's going to
So
skew the
where,
results immediately. Yeah,
where was the fraud?
there was no fraud.
Well,
There was
there
some,
was.
there was some fraud. There was some fraud. Well, it was from the top, but there also
Who
was some
did it?
fraud because, yes, the El Cheapo did. But
They did it.
also they disenfranchised by dropping off lots and lots of voters, including Martin Luther King's cousin, off the voting polls. And she went to vote, and they said she'd never voted before, and she was 97 years old, and she'd voted every time.
Yep.
So they go in and they say,
And
well,
she never moved.
let's just make up some rules here, and we'll just disenfranchise all these folks. But at the same time, they're telling us that they need to throw all the votes out because it was, because they didn't fit what the perception was, even though the perception was that there would be fraud. So it has to fit the perception of fraud if it is. So the patterns are very clear. You can trace them back. You can look at how they're done. There's never been, and there's a lot of sloppy stuff.
So
A lot of
here's the
stuff.
deal. The Republican Party has always relied upon trickery
Uh-huh.
to keep
Well,
themselves going.
for
Gerrymandering.
entertainment purposes only here. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Gerrymandering.
Right.
Voter
Suppression.
disenfranchisement.
Right.
That type of thing. So in today's environment, I already said the energy to sustain that type of behavior just plain isn't there anymore.
Right.
We
So,
have a society that it's getting bigger and bigger as far as individual empowerment.
mhm,
We have machines, we have communication tools, we have networking capabilities that have never been seen before, ever,
right.
at least in the modern
Right.
world. So when you live in Georgia and you're in a city And you hear that the county or the city or the state, they're closing down the places to where you can actually go to vote.
Right.
They're
That's
shutting
suppression.
people off.
Right.
They're cleaning up the rolls, and they're changing the rules. And now you have to have a signature or something, whatever it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Yeah.
What would you do?
Well, first of all, I
What
want to
would
make,
you do if someone come up and said, you can't vote because blah, blah, blah? What are you going to do? What would you
first,
do?
first of all, what you have to remember is that all of these are patterns. So if you're not spending time looking at the patterns, or you aren't even aware that there are patterns, then you feel disempowered. You just feel like, well, they must know more than I do because they're in power, or whatever it is, or they're smarter than me, or whatever. What Stacey Abrams did in Georgia, and several other people of color especially, was stand up and say, no, absolutely
Enough.
not.
Yes.
We're going to stand up. You can vote, your vote matters, and you have a right to vote, and you can vote for whoever you want. And the same thing happened in Philadelphia, and the same thing happened in Detroit, and the same thing actually happened in Arizona. And I give a lot of credit to the Native Americans, because the Native Americans are the ones that got out. They were being decimated by COVID, and not even paid any attention. They've never been paid attention to. They never get their fair due. But those patterns were recognized. Stacy and other people in other places, they recognized those patterns, and they said, you've got to stand up. I can't do it alone. She, when she lost in 2018, she made it her journey. And yet the only way that can be explained by the other side is, oh yes, she stole all those votes. She's the one that she got all these ballots, and she rigged the election or whatever. No, she did not. She followed the pattern, and she took care of it. And if they followed the pattern, see, they don't have a pattern recognition. They can't see the forest through the trees. It's all about me, 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 me. And they're not even opera singers. So what I think we need to do is to say that unless you're consciously aware that there are patterns in your own life and in situations and out in the world and in history, and even in your daily routines, unless you're made aware of those things, you can do nothing to change them. You can empower yourself to make those changes once you are aware of them, because you're allowing yourself to see what they are, and you have the power to make a different choice, or to think a different way, or to, whatever it is. And it doesn't have to be just in politics.
Or choose differently.
Choose differently. Yes.
There is.
And some of that can be done by journaling as well.
Oh, wait. There is no such thing as fear.
Right.
Fear is completely self-made and self-perpetuated. So the best thing anyone can do when they're running because of fear is to not only stop, but turn around and face it.
Right.
And it actually walk into the fear. And then once you're there, that's when you can see.
Yeah.
There was never need to be afraid in the first place.
Well, that comes with people's fearing change. Things have to stay the same. They can't change at all. But I really do believe there is such a thing as physical fear and physical anxiety. But I think a lot of that is self-created by the thoughts we have about that thing and about, right. Yes. So, we're not making fun or saying that you're not really fearful about something. If you are, you are, but you need to take a look and examine it And I've just had really good luck doing that in my journaling. I'll take something that's bothering me and I'll write about it, and I'll really sit with it for quite a while. A lot of people don't do that, but it really does strengthen your muscle. It really does. And then you recognize what is the pattern that this person, and we all have patterns. We all have them. We
Yeah.
have patterns, and some of them are really irritating to us even, that we have that pattern. Yeah.
So the difference of what you're talking about here is if I'm at the bottom of a hill and I look up the hill and I see a boulder coming right at me, I'm going to be afraid.
Unless you step out of the way, right?
And I'm going to step out of the way.
Correct.
Because that's what we do.
Yep.
Now that is appropriate fear
Mm-hmm.
and an appropriate response.
Right.
However, if I'm at the bottom of that hill and I look and there is no boulder, but I'm afraid. Oh, what if?
There was. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I better move over. I've got to get out of the way because that boulder might come down that hill.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference. That's what we're talking about. If you're being physically not challenged, but endangered, then absolutely you need to act and move accordingly.
Right.
But if you're just sitting and and just stewing and worrying, that's not helpful. That's not helpful for anybody.
Only does
that is self-created fear.
Yeah, you are. I think that there's self-disclosure. Both Keith and I, when we met each other, had a problem with confrontation. We did not like confrontation. We actually ran from confrontation, and not necessarily with each other, although we've had those issues, but from higher authorities, me especially, higher authority, a policeman or a boss or something. And Keith has had similar situations over time. And we're still not real comfortable with it, but we do recognize that it's a fear that we have from some other part of our life.
Well, we're taught.
Well, yeah, we are. We were taught, because we're older, we were taught differently than a lot of younger people.
We have to respect our elders, respect those in authority, yada, yada.
But it is a pattern. It's a pattern that both of us have had, and it's a pattern both of us don't like to have. But at the same time, nobody likes confrontation. I don't think. I always can think of something to say after it's all over and said and done. But when I'm in the middle of it, it's just, you want to run away. So, but
we fixed that.
We did. And you can fix whatever it is you want to develop your intuition. So once again, this is just a simple tool that you could start doing for, whatever situation you find yourself in, and say, gee, that made me uncomfortable. I didn't care for that. Or every time I go there, this happens. And then you have to ask yourself, are you expecting it to happen? Or is this just the nature of the beast? Because a lot of times we can say, oh, I don't want to go there because it's always this or it's always that, or, and you want that self-fulfilling prophecy to come true because you don't want to be wrong. And that's what we're dealing with at the top.
And we generally get what we expect.
We do. But that's what we're dealing with at the top, is that he was wrong. And he can't be wrong. Not for himself. He is not allowed to be wrong. And a lot of the problems come from his upbringing and the messages that he's received. But what is scary
and his
to me,
base fears.
Well, his base fears. But what is scary to me is the revenge and the envy. It's unparalleled. I don't know anyone. We all get a little bit jealous of different things, but I don't know anyone that has such a revengeful spirit. And talk about COVID spitting out all over the place, your anger and your hatred and your vitriol.
And he
So
has the nuclear
it's
codes.
interesting.
That should be very scary to everybody.
The other thing is, if you look at things metaphysically and you want to examine the idea of COVID and how that manifests in the body, um, it's a suffocation. It's a respiratory disease, and you have to wonder: are those people feeling like they can't breathe? It just after the George Floyd, I can't breathe, and the other fellow in New York a number of years ago, Eric Gardner, I think, I can't breathe. And then now we have this COVID. It just, it's a pattern. And it doesn't even, this did not make this happen. But it was, it goes right along with the idea of not being able to breathe because you're being stifled and you know,
Suffocated.
you're not being allowed the life force. Right. So, well, anything else you want to add in here?
The only thing I want to add is that these are our opinions only. It's for entertainment purposes,
Yes.
and that's.
We don't propose to be right about everything. This is mostly our observations and our riffing of different things that we think about, and we love to hear what you think. You know, if you don't agree with us, tell us why.
Yeah.
Whatever. But we're happy you're here. We thank you. We
Yes,
thank you
thank you.
for being here with us, and we hope to see you again real soon. So
Thank
until
you.
then, namaste.
Namaste.
I can't seem to get my mouse to work. All right.